Ladies and gentlemen, boys and NBs, welcome back to Warzone, and I guess Call of Duty as a whole, because these attachments are used across all of it. I know you saw the thumbnail and the name of the video, so we got a lot to talk about today. Before we do that, please make sure to like the video and subscribe if you're new here. Over 85% of the people seeing this video are not subscribed, so make sure that you are so you can catch all of the content here on the channel. I got a lot of bangers coming in the next 2 weeks you don't want to miss. So let's get into it. All right, so there's a lot of different attachments that we need to talk about and a lot of builds that you're getting from people like JGod, True Game Data, Immortal. All of these million subscriber channels are giving you builds that are not the best builds for the guns in the game. They just simply are not. And I will explain why as we go through each one. We're going to use 4 different guns to go through this. We're going to cover SMGs, ARs, battle rifles, LMGs as a category. So your mid-long automatic weapons, your SMG/close range with your short barrel rifles, etc., your sniper supports of your SBRs, SMGs, and even ARs in some cases, and then of course your marksman rifles and your sniper rifles. DMRs are a little bit different, but we will cover them as well. Let's start with the Kar 98 as if it is a sniper, because that's what it is realistically within this game. On screen is the build that most people are saying is the most optimal build to use. Some people will drop the no stock and go for the laser instead, and this is better. The reason this build is so bad is because with that no stock, even that they fixed the optics now, it is still atrocious because of all of the sway, making it impossible to hit shots if you have to hesitate at all before pulling the trigger. At that range, it is perfectly fine. However, out here, you are going to miss shots on the head. I don't have plates on, so naturally it died. And of course, you can hold your breath to hit the shots. That is a thing you can do. But what if I told you there was a better way to make sure that you hit roughly 30% more of your sniper shots with 2 attachment changes on this build? The first one is dropping the no stock because we're not worried about our movement, as we're only using this at mid to long range. Our aim down sight is going to be incredible being a marksman rifle, so none of that matters. We're then going to go over and throw on the OLAV laser, because the OLAV laser is not only going to give us aim down and sprint speed, we're going to get a ton of firing aim stability and aim idle sway. That's what it means when it tells you aim stability. So let's go ahead and throw on the OLAV laser. Now that we've done that, the second thing that people are doing wrong with this gun, be it Rebirth Island or Urzikstan, it does not matter, Vondel, whatever map, it doesn't matter what map you're on, because you're not going to be taking fights in that tiny range between where the sonic suppressor pushes you out to 85.9 versus 81.8. The fights that this actually changes are so minuscule, it's not worth the attachment. It just simply is not worth it. I have tried this time and time again, and there has not been a single time where I wished I had the sonic suppressor, because with the sonic suppressor I have a 995 meter per second bullet velocity, but with the suppressor that came out with this gun, I then have a 1004 meter per second bullet velocity, rounding up and down there because it's 0.2, and I have a 77 meter one-shot range. So that's 77 meters, well, 76.9 versus 85.9. So it's a 9 meter difference, and that difference is so small that it does not matter. Sure, there's going to be an off chance, one of every 30 games, that you might have a situation where that is a thing, but it's not going to happen enough to matter. I'd rather have the bullet velocity and be able to land my shots all of the time. The Silentium 792 does more than give us just bullet velocity, though. It also gives us a ton of aim idle sway. So when we throw this on, we're going to be able to actually take our gun and look at those extremely long shots. By aiming in here like this, I'm not holding my breath. As you can see, it still has sway, but it's so tiny in comparison to before. For comparison, if you compare this to before, it was going from the character's waist to a foot over their head. It is a huge difference. So now you can take this and actually flick shot on targets all day long and be able to hit them. It is 100 times better as a sniper with the Silentium and the OLAV versus the no stock and the sonic suppressor. But if you want to go a step further and you don't really care about the range, I have tried this and it is absolutely viable. You can take, instead of high grain, and swap over to high velocity and get up to 1047.4, but then you only have a one-shot range of 63.5 meters. If you're constantly taking 2 to 3 shots to kill somebody, because yes, you can leg people and need 3 shots, use use the high velocity, but high grain is probably going to be your best option. Remember, take your bullet velocity, divide it by 20, and that is your hit scan range. Hit scan is an important thing to take in, even with a sniper, when you're trying to crack those one-shot headshots, so keep this in mind. And once again, just to finish off, here it is for a screenshot. You can use the Kar 98 scope instead. The next gun we're going to look at is the Saperi 46, and on screen is the sniper support build that just about everyone is using right now. And this is so close to good, but there is better, and I'm going to show you by changing a singular attachment. And with that one attachment change, you'll see all of the stats right on screen when I do this. I can't believe no one has done this and no one has realized it. With the DR6 hand stop, obviously we get the movement benefits, we get aim, the sprint, and we're losing hip fire and tack spread. Okay, stats we don't care about. But if we swap over to the Phantom 5, we're also going to gain recoil and gun kick. Our movement is still at 7 meters per second for our tack sprint, and we've got a 5.1 movement. If we go back to the DR6, we're not getting anything to our sprint speeds anyway, so those movement buffs are not anything we're worrying about. And then when we jump over to the Phantom 5, that 5% vertical is incredible because this gun doesn't have any horizontal recoil. So this makes the gun even more controllable. So let's go ahead and throw that on, and by doing that and throwing the Phantom 5 foregrip on this gun, we can then take the Zem compensator and trade that for the requiter. So when we go to the requiter, we actually gain even more of that aim down sight speed, bringing us to 186 over 112. We suppress the gun, and yes, we get a visible laser, but we're faster in every way except for when we're crouching or when we're aiming down sights. And when it's aiming down sights, it's such a small number that it does not even matter. So you can have a 186 aim down sight, or you can have a 205 aim down sight. I prefer the 186. I'm not saying it's wrong to use the Zem, I'm just saying this build is better. So let's take it into the firing range, and I will not control any of the shots. I will aim at the stomach and let the gun fire from the booth at the first target. One bullet away from killing that target with zero control. Going to the second target and doing a light amount of recoil control, I pulled my mouse less than an inch to drop that target. This build is absolutely wonderful. Once again, here it is on screen. Get your screenshots. Moving on to the next gun, I've got the MCW Jack Raven kit, and this is the build that I've seen so many people talking about, though I do see people switching between barrels for either the 16.5 Cyclone or the Mammoth Heavy. The difference between the two is you're going to gain movement speed with the Mammoth on top of the range, and then with the Cyclone, you will not. However, you don't have as large of penalties elsewhere. Neither one of these is actually the correct option. This is a subsonic rifle, so when you take 18% of 456, you are only gaining a very small amount, and it's even shown right there. You're gaining nothing. It's essentially nothing. In the grand scheme, you're pushing your hit scan range by about 3 meters, and that is it. So we take the barrel off because we don't need it, and then we move on and we look for other things that we can make better. And I said in a video the other day that the most overpowered and overlooked attachment in this game is low grain ammo. So let's grab the low grain ammo and see what it does to our gun. We are going to lose 15% range and 15% of our bullet velocity, but again, subsonic rifle, so our bullet velocity does not really matter. As far as that damage range, this is the fastest killing gun in the game, and those damage ranges do not really change by much. It's a 4 meter change. 4 meters from 23 to 17. Yes, at our minimum, we go from 46 to 34, but in this range, most guns are falling off there anyway, so you are absolutely still in the fight. With that 387.5 meter per second bullet velocity, you're going to fire 12 shots at those 50 to 60 meter range either way before they connect. So why not take the 8% recoil control and throw on the low grain? Now that we've thrown on the low grain, if you want to keep the glassless, you can absolutely keep it. I go iron sight, so I'm going to drop that in a minute and show you you what I would use instead. But first, now that we have the 8% to horizontal and vertical from our low grain, we don't need the Zem compensator. And in its place, I'm going to use the Scratch 20 to gain that firing aim stability and make this thing hit every bullet, tighten up that spread that I can't control, the RNG spread, make sure that all of the bullets are hitting the target and none of them are going over the shoulder or between the legs or off in the left field one way or another. And now, if you don't need the Jack glassless or the optic of your choice, an optic is not a bad call. This is absolutely a build to use right here if you need an optic. If you don't need the optic, I would drop the optic and go with a stock. And I want to show you how overpowered this stock is. Even though it says it only gives aim idle sway and firing aim stability, it actually gives 15% recoil control. Yes, it hurts your movement speeds, but you're still tack sprinting at almost 7 meters a second, sprinting at almost 6, and your movement speed is almost 5. This thing is fantastic with this on. You lose all flinch, and you're at 284 and 216 on a full-size rifle in the sniper support category. So by throwing that on, we now have our gun fully built out to be used in the sniper support category with iron sights. Let's take it to the range. Okay, so once again, I'm not going to control any of the recoil here, and I'm going to aim at the belt. And, well, yeah, there is no recoil here. This gun is absolutely absurd built this way. It takes care of business. Once again, here it is on screen for a screenshot. I highly recommend giving this gun a try, especially if you're playing Rebirth Island. Run this with the Saperi or with the Scimitar Horus kit because you will absolutely fry. This build right here for the Jack Raven kit MCW is one of my favorite guns in the game currently. And all right, on screen I've got the Sidewinder because this doubles as both an assault rifle and a DMR depending on how you build it. The build on screen is the most popular build for both an assault rifle and the Sidewinder, which is a battle rifle that is almost a DMR. This is the most popular way to build this gun out, and the majority of the ARs and LMGs such as the Holger, just you would use high grain with the Holger 26. There's one attachment here that above all is absolutely wrong, and that is the Bruin Heavy Support Grip. Let me explain to you why the Bruin Heavy Support is an attachment you should throw in the trash and forget it exists. This attachment is awful. It's been awful since the game came out. They even nerfed it as an attachment to try to point people in the right direction. And that's because the Bruin Heavy, while it does give you a 11% recoil gun kick and a 8% horizontal recoil control, it hurts your vertical by 4% and it adds 8% to your aim down sight speed. And well, I don't typically like foregrips that are going to slow my gun down. I've been like this forever, and I will show you what actually turned me on to this last year. Last year, everyone was using the F-Tac Ripper, which would give you 4% to your recoil, it would give you aim idle stability, it would hurt movement and aim down. Okay, well, if you look at the recoil controls that you get, if you jump over to the Edge 47, you get the same amount of aim stability, you get the same amount of recoil, and it costs you the same amount of aim down sight speed. It doesn't hurt your movement though. So when everyone started using the Bruin Heavy Support Grip this year, I thought back to last year and how the Edge 47 was actually the meta attachment. So again, with the Bruin Heavy, 11 gun kick, 8 horizontal, then we get a 4% increase to vertical and a 8% bonus to aim down sight speed. Pay attention to those numbers as I slide down here and grab the best attachment for a mid-long range AR, BR, LMG, or DMR. And that is the F-Tac SP10 angled as we go from 11 gun kick, 8 horizontal, and 4% vertical to 1% gun kick, 12% horizontal, and 4% vertical as a penalty. We have 0 ADS speed penalty, and we get all of that aim stability that we were getting from the Bruin Heavy right here in the SP10, which is the best foregrip in the game for mid-long range. There is another one that you can also use if you have a gun that you want to speed up, such as the Saperi, and you still need a little bit of recoil control. You can also use the Chook because it will give you half of what the SP10 does, while also giving you a big boon to movement speeds while ADS, crouch, and moving. However, the SP10 cannot be beat. One more time, just to show you, if I go down to the Bruin Heavy, once again, it is 11,848. We slide down to the SP10, it is 112,448. 4-0. This attachment is absolutely going to improve your game the moment you slap it on. And since I have the Sidewinder pulled up, it's one of my favorite guns currently. It has been since they fixed the recoil on it. This build is not good. The Eagle Eye optic is not a good optic. I don't know why everybody's fallen in love with it. I get it, it looks like Warzone 1, but it does not have quite as much zoom as it did back then. If you're super used to it, I would probably keep using it and slowly transition over if you find another that you like. I personally have a grouping of my favorite optics down here, and that is the Jack Glassless, the Intless CAS 14, and the LSJ3. The KR Mortis Precision 2.5 is my favorite optic in the game. I have the AOK 4x, RQ9 Recon, and then the Forge Tac Delta 4. The Forge Tac Delta is used on a few guns, the AOK is used half of the time, and the KR Mortis the other half. The Intless optics are used for more of my test builds, and I do use it on a lot of Modern Warfare 2 guns to get more stability in them because they suffer when you put the long barrels on them. The Jack Glassless is for SMGs. So for this build, I'm going to use the AOK 4x because it is just incredible for that DMR range, and you can use it in the mid-range as well. There's a wonderful red chevron for a reticle. It is a actual 3.5 times zoom once adjusted for field of view, and it just makes the shots easier. And then the final change that I would make is we do not need all of this bullet velocity from the sonic suppressor, because sure, getting to that 999.5 meter per second is pretty wonderful, but I would much rather make sure that my shots hit as always, and that's why I use the Spirit Fire instead. That loss of not even 50 in our bullet velocity, I believe it's 48 meters per second in bullet velocity, we are not going to feel that. Remember, if you divide that by 20, that's how much hit scan range you lose, so it doesn't really matter at all. Let's go ahead and throw that on there, and then let's look at the stats. With our 951.9 meter per second bullet velocity and our effective damage range, where we're going to dump like a truck, is 22.5 meters. So if you do have to use this in a pinch, you'll kill someone in 3 if you hit a headshot. 372 on the aim down, 256 on the sprint to fire. We're going to beat snipers out of the gate all day long. That's assault rifle speeds. This is incredible. Now, our ADS movement speed is much like a sniper because it's a battle rifle. There's another way to build this gun if you need more bullet velocity, but first, make sure to take your screenshot. Give this gun a try the way it's built right here. I have dropped a nuke with this gun build. Give this one a shot. You will absolutely fry an entire lobby. However, if you do need more bullet velocity, I would jump in here and actually grab the high velocity ammo. You should stop worrying so much about your damage ranges on any gun really, so long as they're in the same ballpark. So building this more DMR styled, we're going to throw on the high velocity ammunition and bring our bullet velocity all the way up to 1142. We're going to replace the angled grip of the SP10, and then we're going to swap from the RQ9 Recon to Forge Tac Delta. I've been doing this lately just to try it out, and again, since the barrel has so much stability in it, you will absolutely fry at those long ranges with this build. So those are your options for that. Remember, Intless LSJ3 is the other option, but here it is, screenshot if you would like. This will absolutely fry Kar 98s all over the map, so long as they don't one-shot you in that one-shot range. All right, and the last one I have pulled up here to show you is for SMGs as a whole, but in particular, the Horus. The FJX Horus, this is the build that I have seen everyone talking about being best in slot. You can't beat this. This is the best build for it. That is wrong. Every attachment on this gun except for no stock and the aftermarket kit is wrong. So let's go ahead and fix it. Number 1, DR6 hand stop. It's a decent attachment. It does have use, but I'm not going to use it on this gun. What we're going to look for is what we can make better on the gun. Now with this SMG, with this kit, it has almost no horizontal recoil. So okay, we could go with a foregrip like the Bruin Pivot or the Chimera Rin 03. Both of these hurting are aim down sight and sprint to fire. So that's probably not a good idea. We don't need the Chook, even though it'll up our movement speed because we don't need horizontal recoil. Our vertical is not bad in any way either, so all of these attachments, we don't really need them. Same goes for the SP10. What I personally think is the best attachment in this slot is the Phantom 5. With the Phantom 5, we're bringing up our aim down sight, our sprint to fire, getting it back from using this aftermarket kit so that we get the fastest possible choice for this gun. You can use the XRK Edge BW4 as well to get that aim and and sprint, as well as some of that movement speed. But remember, it does not affect your sprint speed. It's only really affecting your aim down sight movement speed for when it's tactically useful. So I'm going to go with the Phantom 5. The next thing that we're going to do is, again, the recoil on this gun is extremely easy. So I'm going to take off the Zem compensator and I'm going to go with the Requieter, because the Requieter is wonderful, bringing in that suppression as well as 3% to aim down sight speed. The next thing that I'm going to do with the last attachment that I have, what I'm going to do with that is I can, number one, if you need to tighten up your shots, go with the Lull 9M grip to get the recoil control, firing aim stability, and gun kick control. Firing aim stability is a fantastic stat to have. However, I personally am going to look for other options, and what I found was if I go in and look at my bullet velocity for a sniper support role, I can run high velocity and get to 842.4 meter per second on my bullet velocity and absolutely fry out to the 50-60 meter range with this. However, you can also throw on the Jack glassless, and this is what I ultimately decided on for this one in the sniper support role. Even though it has fantastic iron sights, the glassless has firing aim stability and it gives me a better sight picture. So fully built out with the Requieter now, this thing is wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and let it fry without controlling it at all. I'm going to aim at the belt once again. As you can see, with no control, it's kind of silly how fast this thing drops something. And even at range, another option is to go from no stock and go to the Ripper light stock. If you need more recoil control, this is probably your best bet. You're going to gain 36% recoil control by going to the Ripper light stock if you need it. And for comparison, let's take it back into the range. Again, aim at the belt, and then at the long range, so it's all up to what fits your playstyle the most with this gun. And all right, I did want to break down here on the end what I prioritize when we are talking about a gun. And let's look at the stats and see what I mean by stats I prioritize. There are 5 different categories here that you should be worried about, because you cannot change your damage profile unless you change caliber of bullet. You can't change your fire rate on almost every gun unless you're using an aftermarket part. It's the only way you can change it. You should be worried about your range, recoil, mobility, handling, and accuracy. Break these down. Range is your velocity as well as your range. Recoil control is that and gun kick. Mobility is how fast you can move in all different directions while aiming, etc. Handling is your aim down sight, your sprint to fire, and accuracy is your stability, hip fire, tack stance, flinch resistance, all of these things. So for each gun, there is a way to weigh these different attachments. Starting with a submachine gun, I prioritize recoil, handling, mobility, accuracy, and then range. This is to make sure that all of my bullets hit the target. One thing I will say is with that SMG handling priority, that is to get 1 notch of firing aim stability or aim idle sway. It doesn't matter which one, because they do the same thing. Just one works before you start shooting and while you're shooting, while the other one works only while you're shooting. The sniper support. This is like the Jack Scimitar kit for the Horus, your Jack Raven kit on the MCW. Any gun you would run behind a sniper, we're going to worry about recoil, accuracy, range, handling, and mobility. That is to make sure we have the ability to keep that pattern tight on the target at the longer ranges, making sure we have aim idle sway as well as firing aim stability with accuracy. And then finally, for our ranged guns, assault rifles, LMGs, battle rifles, we're going to prioritize accuracy number 1 to make sure at those longer ranges we're frying our targets with a tight grouping for RNG. We're then going to put on recoil control to make sure that we can hit our targets without fail when shooting our gun and not go any higher than that. Then we go to range, make sure we have the range where we're going to take the majority of our fights within our hit scan, so aim for about 60 meters. From there, try to bring your ADS and your sprint to fire as low as possible, and then finish off with any attachments, slots you may have left by adding mobility to the weapon. This will make all 3 categories absolutely fire. This is my magnum opus for building guns. This is the secret sauce. I hope this video has helped you tremendously. I will be back very soon with another video, but until then, boys, leave me alone.